deep in the Sinai Desert, at a remote outpost called Kuntillet Ajrud. Archaeologists uncovered something that simply should not exist. It was a discovery that sent shockwaves through the world of biblical scholarship. An inscription from the 8th century BC that directly challenges everything we thought we knew about the God of the Bible. The ancient text reads, "I bless you by Yahweh and by his Asherah," a name that was once whispered in temples and homes, but later systematically and brutally erased from history. Was the God of Israel always alone? Or did the ancient Israelites believe their creator had a divine queen? Today, we investigate the forbidden archaeology of the goddess that the Bible tried to delete. Join us as we uncover the story of Yahweh's lost consort. For decades, the consensus among scholars was that ancient Israel was strictly monotheistic. Right from the very beginning, the idea of one God, singular and unparalleled, was seen as the defining feature of Israelite religion. But the soil of the Holy Land itself tells a very different and much more complex story. In archaeological digs all across Israel and Judah, a curious pattern emerged. Thousands upon thousands of small clay figurines, all depicting a female deity with prominent breasts and stylized features, were found. And where were they found? Not in some pagan shrine on the outskirts of society, but in the heart of everyday Israelite homes, dating from the period of the Israelite monarchy, the time of the kings. Who was this mysterious figure? Her name was Asherah. In the broader Canaanite culture from which the Israelites emerged, Asherah was a major goddess. She was the queen of heaven, the mother of the gods, and the consort of El, the supreme high god of the Canaanite pantheon. As the early Israelites began to distinguish their national god, Yahweh, it seems they didn't just abandon their old ways entirely. Instead, they brought Asherah with them, adapting her into their new religious framework. For many, she wasn't a rival to Yahweh, but his divine partner. And the evidence for this isn't just limited to these thousands of household figurines. It's written in stone, for anyone brave enough to look, at Kuntillet Ajrud in the Sinai, and again at another site called Kerbet Elcom in the Judean hills. Stunning inscriptions were found. These weren't scribbled notes. They were formal blessings, invoking not just Yahweh, but Yahweh and his Asherah. The grammar here is crucial. The possessive his indicates a direct and intimate relationship. This wasn't a fringe, pagan cult borrowing a name. This was a belief system where Yahweh had a divine consort, and her name was Asherah. This suggests that for many ancient Israelites, for centuries, the concept of a holy family wasn't just a distant metaphor. It was a divine reality. God had a partner. She was the divine mother, the source of fertility and life. And there's compelling evidence to suggest she stood right beside him, represented by a sacred tree or pole, even within the sacred precincts of the Temple of Jerusalem itself. The Bible itself hints at this, mentioning kings like Manasseh placing an Asherah pole in the temple, an act later condemned, but one that proves her presence was once accepted at the very heart of Israelite worship. So, if she was so popular, so revered, why is she a villain in the Bible, and completely absent from modern Judaism and Christianity? The answer lies in a violent and sweeping religious revolution that took place in the 7th century BC. During the reign of a king named Josiah, a powerful group of religious reformers, often called the Deuteronomists, rose to power in Jerusalem. Their goal was absolute centralization of worship. One God, Yahweh, one temple in Jerusalem, and one law, the one they were writing. This new, strict monotheism had no room for a goddess. The Deuteronomistic reform was a purge. They tore down the local shrines, the high places where people had worshipped for generations. They smashed the sacred standing stones, and, most importantly, they chopped down and burned the sacred poles and trees of Asherah. But the revolution wasn't just physical, it was textual. These reformers began to edit the sacred scrolls of Israel. They reframed the nation's history to fit their new theology. In their version of the story, the worship of Asherah was no longer a mainstream practice, but a vile, idolatrous abomination that led Israel astray. History, as they say, is written by the victors. In the hands of the Deuteronomistic editors, Asherah was demoted from a powerful goddess and divine consort to a mere wooden pole or sacred grove, a lifeless object of pagan folly. Over time, her true identity was forgotten, scrubbed from the collective memory of the Western world. The archaeological record, however, is clear and undeniable. Ancient Israel was not always the purely monotheistic nation we imagine today. It was a place of rich and diverse beliefs where, for a significant period, the divine feminine held a throne right next to the divine masculine. The evidence forces us to ask some uncomfortable but important questions. Why was the idea of a goddess, a divine feminine partner for God, so threatening to the men who edited the Bible? What did they stand to gain by erasing her? And for us today, does knowing that the original God of the Bible may have had a queen change how you view the Creator? Leave your verdict in the comments below. We have a feeling this one is going to start a fire. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into history that was never meant to be found. Don't forget to subscribe to The Ancient Verdict for more stories that challenge everything you thought you knew.